Good afternoon.
Are we ready today?
Hello, mom. Yeah, okay. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Let us wait for another 1 minute for people to join in.
Okay.
Okay. Now, why are we saying that Sule Umar should switch off the video because we're not interested in seeing his face? It's not like that. Uh, Hi, Sule. How are you?
I'm here with you, ma.
Okay. Now, without wasting any more time, let us proceed. I'll be sharing my screen for your convenience.
Okay.
Okay. So, just a minute. Huh? Okay. No, no. Uh, Today we will be completing Unit 3 and Unit 4 of Block 3. Unit 3 and Unit 4 of Block 3. Kindly ensure that your material is open with you. Yeah. Can you all see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. Now, today we will be discussing about the loaning options, the microcredit options that were made available to the rural people in India. We discussed about poverty alleviation programs. We discussed about employment programs. We discussed about wage employment programs. Now we will be talking about microfinance. Now, microfinance has been handled in two ways in this block. Firstly, uh, microfinance availability to general rural poor. General means all rural poor people, and another one particularly for the females, for the women. So Rashtriya Mahila Kosh, Mahila is a Hindi word that stands for women. So now this microfinance opportunities and options were made, this program was made available particularly to the rural women in India. So to begin with, we need to understand. I'm moving ahead and yeah. To begin with, we need to understand one thing, or the country understood this pretty soon, uh, within a few years of its development policies, that a lot of credit opportunities and availabilities were not reaching out or down to the real needy. It was being utilized at those people who were at an economically powerful or economically approachable or economically mainstreamed people who were able to reach out to the credit facilities, and the banks also were providing them with credits. So the real program, or the formal banking sector was not able to reach to the rural poor. And it was because of this that microfinance was started by the government for these people, particularly for the ones who were not able to come out and reach out to the microfinance facilities that were made available otherwise, facilities that were otherwise available in the market. Now, uh, we need to understand that what do you actually mean by the word microfinance. Okay, so microfinance is providing financial services to, yeah, microfinance by within the objective of microfinancing. The aim was to provide, to reach out or to provide financial aid or subsidies and loans to the people who were wanting to start an economic enterprise of their own. And we were very well aware of this fact, or it was pretty soon realized that it was only 25% of the economically active population that were using the formal financial systems, and the financial system were reaching out only to them. The remaining bottom 75% of the population had no access to the financial services, and they were only left to deal with the informal money lenders who were charging extremely high interest rates. They were exploited at their hands. Because of illiteracy, they did not know which papers they were signing. Often it would happen that in the name of a small amount of loan, the greedy money lenders would exploit them, would cheat them, and get them to write their lands in their names. So these problems were becoming uh, extremely big and large and troublesome for the rural people. And obviously, anything if any particular section of our society is suffering, it is the responsibility of the government to ensure that their suffering ends. So, with this objective, financial aid or systems of providing loan to was established, and this was known as the, as you can see, RMK stands for Rashtriya Mahila Kosh, and it is known as a National Credit for Women in English. This was started in 1990. 3. So these were credit facilities particularly made available for the women in the rural area. Because we do understand that if at one point, if I'm telling you that the rural poor were not able to reach to the formal financial services, the women definitely were not able to reach them, because women are in another one level more vulnerable than the larger rural population. So the rural women were facing the double brunt of problems, and they were doubly more vulnerable, doubly more incapable of reaching out to the formal credit delivery mechanisms and systems. So that is why the government or the nation decided to have this kind of a credit facility to for women. Now women could use it for any kind of a socio-economic activity. They could use it for the sustenance of their already existing employment. They could use this credit facility to generate new economic opportunities or enterprises for themselves. They could they could use this money to create assets for their family and for themselves. So there were a lot of ways that these women could use this credit, and definitely this program Rashtriya Mahila Kosh was able to give its best of the deliveries and was able to bring up the level of rural women to a better position, because now they had the opportunity of taking credit and loan at an extremely low interest rate, and it was client friendly, and the poor women were now able to get into the financial institutions or use the financial institutions, something which they were not able to do earlier. So this is the main objective behind the Rashtriya Mahila Kosh. Go through it. Yeah, the entire unit talks about how do these women take the loan, procedures, what is the main schemes, what is the eligibility criterias, what are the eligibility norms, which kind of organizations can take this loan. Women can they said women development corporations can also. We are talking about Indra Mahila Block Samitis. These were registered under the Indra Mahila Yojana, and it and they are eligible to even so these committees were also eligible to borrow from the Rashtriya Mahila Kosh. So individual women were allowed to borrow. There were certain communities. There were certain communities which were eligible to borrow. There were certain associations who could borrow from this scheme. But of course, all these committees, associations should be working for the rural women. So individual rural women could take loan from it. Certain organizations could take loan for it, but all of them, the mandatory part was that they should be working for women, so that whatever loan is being taken uh, are were used for for activities related to the upliftment of rural women, the poor women in rural society. Then there is whole procedures as to what is the maximum amount of loan that you can take, what should be the purpose of the loan. That I have already told you, that it has to be for income generation activities for the rural poor women. What is the maximum amount of loan, what are the repayment procedures, what is the rate of interest. So these things are very categorically and clearly mentioned in the study material, which you can see in front of you. Okay, so this is mainly about the Rashtriya Mahila Kosh. Now, the next initiative that was taken by the government was similar to this, but since this was mainly targeted at the women, this was mainly targeted at the women. Let me just open it for you. Yeah. Since the earlier program was targeted for only the women, these services, these programs now that we will be discussing under Unit 4, that is the programs of development finance corporations. These were these bodies were basically constituted to ensure finance credit facilities to the rural poor and to the vulnerable rural sections of the society. So there were a number of corporations or organizations that were set up who were given the task and the rights to give funds as loans to the rural poor. Besides the nationalized banks and besides the formal structure of finance facilities that were already existing in the society, these corporations were also brought into place, particularly with this objective in mind, no, particularly because of the reason that the formal financial sector was not being able to cater to the very uh, uh, to the very simple life or simple needs of the rural people, because the rural were not able to come out of their boundaries to reach to the formal finance services or the formal finance sector. So that is why these corporations and sectors and systems were put in place, so that it was easier for the rural poor, rural people to make use of the credit facilities. So, under this section, we will be talking particularly about three such organizations. One is the National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development, which is in short known as NABARD. NABARD. So under Unit 4, the programs of development finance corporations. Under these, we will be talking about three such corporations. One, NABARD, National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development. Another one we'll be talking about is Industrial Development Bank of India, which is in short known as IDBI. And lastly, we will be talking about the National Scheduled Caste Finance and Development Corporation, which is known as NSFDC. So under this unit basically discusses about three such corporations that were put in place to provide financial services, credit services to the rural poor. NABARD, I will be going through it in very, I won't say short, but enough for you to understand the difference between the three. The first, that is NABARD, was basically to provide financial assistance for microcredit. It was a microcredit initiative. The Industrial Development Bank of India was providing funds to set up industries in rural area along with microcredit initiatives. The National Scheduled Caste Finance and Development Corporation was also definitely aimed at microcredit initiatives, but it was aimed at providing these services to the lowest segment of Indian society, which is known as the scheduled castes. See, in India, we are, besides division based on religion, ethnicity, color, language, there is a major division in society, which is, or stratification in the society on the basis of the caste of a particular person. So there are primarily four castes. There are Brahmins, there are Kshatriyas, there are Vaishya, and there are Shudras. So the Shudras from a very long time, from from an extremely long past time, have been the lowest rung in the society and have been subjected to a lot of discrimination. As a result, they are not able to they were not able to be at par with the general other caste and general other societies. Realizing this fact, there are certain reservations that have been given to them, and they've been given a special section and a special mention in our in the constitution of our country. So they have been mentioned in one of the scheduled schedules of our constitution where names of such castes are listed, that anybody belonging to these castes would be categorized as scheduled caste, and certain and reservation would be provided to them in most of the educational and economic and employment opportunities. So besides education and employment, other initiatives also are, whenever initiatives are being made and targeted, are being made and initiated, the most vulnerable target group often are the scheduled caste. They are the women, the children, because these categories are those categories which have been since time immemorial been discriminated against, and equal opportunities have been denied to them. So this particular finance corporation by the name of National Scheduled Caste Finance and Development Corporation is has been formed to provide for microcredit facilities to the scheduled caste. So this is by and large. I have gone through this entire unit, and the in detail they have discussed about NABARD, IDBI, and NSFTC as financial institutions that are functioning in our country for achieving rural development objectives. So these financial institutions in India have been formed with this aim in mind, that that they are able to achieve the goal of rural development through setting up of industries, or to setting up as a network of credit facilities, so that more and more people can indulge into rural infrastructure, agriculture, thus leading to poverty alleviation. So these small borrowers are able to economically uplift themselves, which in turn benefits economically to there is an economic benefit to India in an indirect manner. So we have IDBI, we have NABARD, and we have the other corporation that is taking care of the credit microfinance facilities to reach out to the most vulnerable rural poor society of India. So this in detail, 4.3 details about NABARD. You can go through it. It's a long, detailed write up. What are the different models that are there? What are the various projects that NABARD finances? Then we have the Industrial Development Bank of India, how they provide financial services to set up industries and small scale industries, particularly. How these there are these micro credit initiatives, and how they promote small scale industries to come up in a more organized manner. And then we have the National Scheduled Caste Finance and Development Corporation. Just give me a second, please. Just a second. Okay, so then we have this National Scheduled Caste Finance and Development Corporation. I have already told you what the scheduled castes are, and these financial services, this corporation ensures that financial services or microcredit facilities reach out to the scheduled caste of the country. And it talks about what are the accountabilities of the beneficiaries, uh, how they are supposed to ensure that they pay back their credits on loan on time, and it is an easy passage to trying and take credit from the otherwise extremely humongous, confusing, and complicated financial services that are otherwise available in the country. These corporations and or maybe even the Rashtriya Mahila Kosh. All these systems and initiatives have helped the rural poor to take credit from the organizations and companies, and to take and to use these credit or this money for their economic upliftment. So this is with this we are we have completed unit 3 as per me. Unit 3 is what it is showing in my records. I think yours was unit 5 as what was told to me yesterday. So we've completed with block 3, sorry, block 3, unit 1 to 4. We'll take a 5-minute break for you to open the other block, block 4 according to me, but you need to look for it, and it is known as the Rural Basic Services and Infrastructure. Rural Basic Services and Infrastructure, where the first unit talks about elementary education and total literacy campaign. There is rural housing, there is rural health, there is drinking water and rural sanitation, there is rural electrification and energy and rural connectivity. So initially we will be talking about in another half an hour we'll be taking up the topic of for another half an hour we'll be talking about unit 1 and 2, and the next hour will be dedicated to unit 3 to 6. Okay, so kindly look for the material and just take a 5 minutes break. You'll take a 5 minute break and look for this material. Yeah. Were you able to find the material? Good. So now, as you can see, let me share my screen. Can you see the screen now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So this is block 4
Yes.
according to me, and the first unit is the elementary education and total literacy campaign. By the term elementary education, we mean basic education for the uh, for um, uh, uh, for the for the younger generation, for the children, and the aim of the government is to achieve a total 100% literacy to all its citizens. So 100% literacy to all its citizens could be achieved if we work at an elementary level, if we work at the primary level, and we initiate and we start our action and activities from the very beginning of primary education. So, with this aim in mind, the government of India has a number of action plans and policies that have been put in place to ensure this total literacy within our country, in our country, and to ensure total literacy, these programs and policies work hand in hand to meet these objectives. Now, under this unit, we will be discussing about the education policy. The unit discusses about certain important educational policies that have been implemented in our country from time to time. Then there is a national program of action related to education. Then there are programs related to education for all, whether it is through the National Literacy Mission, whether it is the national program of nutritional support, whether it is the district primary education program. It's all written, if you can see here. So then we have elementary education uh, plans where there are major strategies that have been worked out and put in place. This program, which is also known as SSA or Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, uh, ensures community empowerment, aims at institutional capacity building, community based monitoring, and also has a special focus on girls and people groups that have special needs. So, as you can see, that when we are talking about at an Indian level, when we are talking about education, then it is not merely in numbers or in alphabets. It's more to do with the overall strategic development and overall capacity building and personality development of the students, because no education would be complete if it does not bring up the if it is not able to empower the learners and the group that is into this education system. So the government of India realized this thing very soon, that for any success and any progress to be achieved, any success to be achieved, the aim of the all education programs should be to empower the learners. With this objective in mind, a number of programs and a number of commissions were initiated. Commissions means there were these groups that got together to take on and decide upon the important areas that needed to be tackled and taken care of in when it came to education. So when if we talk about what is elementary education, because the topic is elementary education and total literacy campaign. So to break up this topic, what do you mean by elementary education? By the term elementary education, we basically mean education from class 1 to class 8. It is under this that we cover the elementary. Uh, this is what is called elementary. We also call it primary education in our country. It is primary and upper primary when it comes to from class 1 to class 8. So class from 1 to from the primary classes, when it is primary education is from class 1 to 5 we are talking about, and the upper primary education talks about is deals with class 6 to class 8. So here we have a target group of from age 6 to age 14. Class generally a child here in India, a child who is in class 1 is generally aged 6, is 6 years of age. So he's 6 in class 1, he's 7 in class 2, he's 8 in class 3, he's 9 in class 4, and he's 10 in class 5, and 10 or 11, obviously it's a range. And once the child reaches the upper primary, which is in class 8, it is the child is already 11, 10 or 11 years of age to 14 years. 11, 12, 13 would mean 6, 7, 8, 9, 4 years, and 11, 12, 13, 14 is the age that we are talking about here. So we have primary and upper primary education under the purview of elementary education. Here, what is very important that needs to be brought to your notice is that we have a universal elementary education system. And it's not like by the term universal elementary education we mean that the structures and the systems are the same all over the country. It's like if for us primary, if for example in one of the state primary is from class 1 to 5, that doesn't mean that in another state means area, uh, maybe in North India, if it is primary stands from class 1 to class 5, it can't happen that in South India the primary would be any way different from class 1 to class 5. So that is there is a universal structure, so which definitely helps in planning, and the success rate is also depends upon the universality of the programs. Otherwise, having to plan and take up successful initiatives, it becomes very difficult if we have two types of structures and systems working. One system may one program may benefit them differently, and the other program may not benefit the other, and this program may not benefit the other group in the same manner, because the target group has changed. So the universality has to be maintained, and this is what was ensured here in our country. So this is what we talk. This is what we mean by elementary education. And now to bring up the standards of elementary education in our country, a number of commissions, time and again, have been formed and constituted to take up and discuss about the contemporary issues of in education, and to solve them through and to solve them by making new programs and policies time and again. Some such policies that are discussed in this unit are the National Policy on Education. You can read about it in detail. We call it the NPE, National Policy on Education, which was implemented in 1968. I'm slowly going through it for you to see where we are. This national policy on education has certain thrust areas, which was to have a national system of education. As I was just now telling you, that we have a universal system of education. So we have a 10 plus 2 plus 3 program. 10 plus 2 plus 3 means class 10th Then we have 2 more years of education, which we, and after that, a child has passed his class 12. And after 12, we have a bachelor's program, which is for 3 years. Uh, this is what is 10 plus 2 has been. Okay. Then we, of course, this program aims at education for equality. It says that nobody should be discriminated against based on the based on gender, on caste, or any other kind of disability or any kind of a vulnerability. That the child should not be made to face the brunt of that discrimination and should not be denied their educational rights under any circumstances. So, in India, education for all is without any kind of an inequality in it is promoted. Elementary education, we have already spoken to you. I have already spoken to you about it. And then this is how this entire national policy on education works. What is the structure they have discussed in detail. Then another national after national policy of on education 1986, there was another program of action that was put into place by the Ministry of Human Resource Development later on. And this national program of action had the certain task forces were there's certain subjects were assigned to the task forces of this action plan, and it has been listed over here that what were the tasks that were given to this these forces to take up. You can go through it. I have gone through it. It is very clearly mentioned, and it is directly related to national education policy. Directly related to the national policy on education. Education under section 1.6, again they are talking about education for all, where no discrimination, nobody should be faced with any kind of a discrimination. That was the major objective behind this uh, education for all. And of course it meant that the education services and facilities to reach them at the rural level, at the place that they were saying. So the people, it was asked, the government took up the effort and initiative to have primary schools in each and every village of the country, uh, keeping in mind the distance, because we realized, or the government realized, that uh, the rural children uh, are not very encouraged into traveling long distances for education. So instead of them reaching to the schools were made to reach them. So primary schools were set up within the vicinities of their houses. Number of primary schools were established only with this aim in mind, that they need to be within the vicinity of where these rural people were residing. So this then we have this National Commission for Elementary Education, Mission for Elementary Education, which is also known as the Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan. Go through it. This we've discussed about this also earlier, as to how there are certain objectives that have been uh, you know um, that have been targeted under SSA, and some of them are that to have all children in school by 2003. We are obviously way ahead of it now. To have all the children complete their primary schooling by 2007, to have all children complete 8 years of schooling by 2010. So we picked up that year as a benchmark, and then decided that by 2003, how what should our target till where should our target have reached. Since we started it in 2010, if we started in 2010, so we no by 2010, the target was, the objective was to achieve these targets by 2010. So if we did our back counting, it was to be targeted in such a way that all children, to have all children in school to begin their education by 2003. By 2007, they should have finished their primary schooling, 5 years of primary schooling. By 2010, they should have finished their 8 years of primary schooling, which we say is elementary education. As I told you earlier, from class 1 to class 8 is elementary education. So with this uh, program, SSA, with this program, we aimed at ensuring that by 2010, the children would have completed their elementary education. And then, of course, the program moves ahead accordingly and time to time in that same spaced out manner. Then it also talks about the capacity building. It talks about community-based monitoring, and it has a this Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan has a special focus of on girls and the special groups, whether it is the scheduled caste that we spoke about, or the scheduled tribes, or any other vulnerable sections of the society, whether the vulnerability is based on disability, physical or mental, any. The objective was to ensure that education and its right reaches to all, and everybody benefits from the programs that are being run for the basics, because education is one of the basic services, and education as a basic service should reach to everybody in the society. So this is what the unit speaks about on elementary education and total literacy campaign. Now we will come to unit 2, that is rural housing. Take a 5 minutes break, look for that material, open it in front of you, and then we'll proceed.